So we've got Daniel Dynamite Dubois versus El Animal Filip Hrgovic this Saturday as the co-main event. It might not be the co-main event, I'm not sure. But it's anyways the second fight before the Wilder versus Zhang fight. Now this is a very intriguing fight between two guys of very different styles. So for me, it's a really hard fight to call, and I'm very much on the fence about this one. And I see it as a 50-50 fight. Genuine 50-50. So Daniel Dubois, he's had a very tough career so far. He's come up the hard way. He's had ups, he's had downs. So we obviously remember the loss to Joyce where some people thought he quit. I mean, he did take a knee, so you could say that, but God knows what the mitigating circumstances were. It was a hard fight for him. It took a lot of confidence from him, and he had to kind of get into a rebuilding mission, which he has since. We've seen him fight Usyk 2 fights ago. He got stopped in that fight as well. But he's also shown that he can really overcome adversity. So when he fought Kevin Lerena, he was down, I think, like twice in the first couple of rounds, but he eventually got up to stop Kevin Lerena. So he showed that he can overcome adversity, and he does know how to get tough when times require him to be tough. We also saw him against Jarrell Miller. So he was doing really well against Miller, but Miller had a little spell where he came back. But Dubois kept going. He kept going. And in that 12th round, he put a beating on Jarrell Miller and stopped him in the final round. And that was so impressive from Daniel Dubois. It's very nice to see him more confident and to rise from the ashes kind of when he was down and out against the likes of Joe Joyce. Even against Usyk, we saw some impressive spots from Daniel Dubois, and in many ways, he gave the blueprint to Tyson Fury for Tyson Fury's fight with Alexander Usyk. We saw Dubois having a lot of success to the body, especially with the uppercut. Now, whether you want to say it was low or not, he threw body shots quite a few times, and he was catching Usyk clean. Now, obviously, Usyk is Usyk, so he took Dubois out. And again, you have people like Hrgovic playing on the fact that maybe Dubois quit, because we saw Dubois kind of take a knee in that fight. But I mean, sometimes a beating is a beating and you can't come back. You can't do anything about it. So I don't know if I'd call that quitting. But yeah, Dubois is, for me, he's also shown some improvements in technical ability. That we've seen him slipping shots. We've seen him rolling under shots. We've seen his footwork be improved a little bit. Like obviously he's had spells with Shane McGuigan. Now he's with Don Charles. But I think he's 100% a better fighter than he was 5 years ago, for example. So he is a guy who is in the ascendancy, and that bodes him well for this fight with Filip Hrgovic. Now, Hrgovic, for me, is a lot of hype, but hasn't delivered on any of it. So all we've heard for years is Hrgovic, Hrgovic, Hrgovic. If you are a YouTube rat like me, you'll see him in sparring with Deontay Wilder. He was in David Hayes' camp for, I think it was a fight versus Tyson Fury that never happened. So he's been around for quite a while, and we've heard the likes of Hearn and people talk about Filip Hrgovic. But for me, he hasn't really delivered. On paper, he has a lot of the tools to be one of these good heavyweights nowadays, but I just haven't seen a lot from him to suggest that. So the fight versus Zhang was a very close fight, and I was impressed with the way Hrgovic was able to put his shots together on Zhang. He was landing quite cleanly on Zhang. But there were a couple times in that fight where Zhang landed on him and Filip Hrgovic was almost walking away like he wanted to quit. Now, if you don't remember what I'm talking about, go back and watch that fight. He turned his head and looked like he wanted to quit the fight. Now, I've heard subsequently that I think his dad had some issues or maybe some health issues or something like that, which may have contributed to his mindset. But regardless, to see a fighter do that in a fight is really quite concerning. I thought he lost that fight. I thought Zhang won that fight. We saw him against Dempsey McKean a couple of fights ago. 12 rounds it went. And to me, again, Hrgovic didn't look very impressive. Now, granted, Dempsey McKean, all he did was clinch the whole fight. It was like Vladimir Klitschko Mark II. Just clinching, trying to survive the whole fight, made it a wrestling match. I'm not sure how the referee allowed that to happen. Eventually, Hrgovic did knock him out in the 12th round, but it was not a very overwhelming victory for Hrgovic. And again, for somebody with so much hype, you'd expect a little bit more about him. Then obviously in the last fight, we saw him against Mark Demori. I think it went 1 round. Looks like Dubois was just there for a paycheck. He got his paycheck and Dubois won the fight in 1 round. So we obviously couldn't really learn anything about that. Technically, he is tall, rangy. He can put shots together very well, like we saw in the Zhang fight. But he does lean in a lot when he throws. So he'll kind of leave his head over his front foot. So against a good fighter, he will get caught on the counter. And potentially even Daniel Dubois would be able to catch him on the counter, potentially with an uppercut. I'm not sure if Dubois has that kind of ring craft to be able to figure that out. Dubois does have his strengths. He's obviously a very, very powerful puncher. He has improved his game, like I kind of mentioned earlier, with regards to the head movement and the footwork. And he's got a good jab. When he uses his jab, he's got a very good jab. But he's not the most fluid fighter. I wouldn't say he's a very reactive fighter who will kind of counter on the fly and do things like that. So it's honestly really a hard fight to call for me. I can't figure out who has got the upper hand here. My heart says Dubois because I want Dubois to win. If he could set up a fight with AJ, I would really be excited for that one. I do want Dubois to win this fight. But at the same time, we have seen him under pressure. Sometimes he's come out of that pressure. Sometimes he's kind of folded under the pressure. By the same token, we saw that from Hrgovic in the Zhang fight. So it's a really tough fight. I'm going to go with it being a 12-round fight. I don't think this one will end in knockout. I think it's going to be a 12-round fight. It's going to be more cagey than we probably want it to be. And I can see Hrgovic, if it does go 12 rounds, I can see Hrgovic getting a decision. But hey, I could be wrong. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.